Paradrama Tales.
I flew across the country to see him, took days off work, cared for him while he was sick, and then, without asking, he texted me, "You're watching my niece, no walking the city." Suddenly, I wasn't his partner. I was the free help. I circled the date on my calendar 3 weeks before I even booked the flight. It wasn't a fancy trip. There were no romantic plans or detailed itineraries. But to me, it mattered because it meant I was going to see him. Not over FaceTime, not through a screen, in person. Just us. We'd been doing the long-distance thing for a while, the kind of stretch where you count the time zones more than you count the days. And this visit, it was supposed to be the thing that made the distance feel less permanent. A few days where I could cook for him, laugh beside him, fall asleep tangled up in each other without worrying about dropped calls or time differences. I packed light, but thoughtful. Brought the hoodie of his he said he missed. Slipped in the little jar of homemade chili oil he once joked was better than his mom's. Bought new socks because he always loses his. These weren't grand gestures. They were quiet ones. Love in the small things. And when I arrived, everything felt soft. He smiled when he saw me at the airport, pulled me in the way I'd hoped he would, said I smelled like home. I melted a little at that. I let myself believe this trip was going to be something real. He'd been sick, a mild fever lingering, so I stayed close. I cooked, cleaned the kitchen, picked up his meds, brought him water every couple of hours like a nurse in slippers. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt good. I liked being useful, not in the way that erased me, but in the way that made me feel part of his life. Saturday came and went like a blur of soup bowls and soft TV shows. I rubbed his back when he coughed. He kissed my forehead and whispered, "I'm so glad you're here." I believed him, and I told myself, when Sunday comes, he'll feel better. We'll go explore, take that walk downtown we talked about. Try that coffee shop he once sent me a photo of. Make some memories, the kind that aren't made through texts or memes. Because this wasn't just a getaway. It was me showing up, taking days off work, booking a flight, sleeping in someone else's bed, folding someone else's laundry, holding someone else's hand through being sick. And I didn't mind any of it, because I thought it mattered. I thought I mattered, and I guess that's why what came next hurt so much. It wasn't that he asked too much. It was that he never even asked at all. He wasn't feeling well when I got there. I could see it in his face before he even said a word. The flushed skin, the slow steps, the way he leaned into my hug like gravity had gotten heavier. "I think I'm coming down with something," he mumbled, already halfway to the couch. And just like that, Sick Saturday began. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't do anything. I unpacked quietly while he wrapped himself in a blanket and curled up like a kid. And for a moment, I almost smiled, not because he was sick, but because something about the way he let himself be vulnerable in front of me made me feel close to him. Trusted. He asked for tea. I made it. He mentioned he was hungry, but nothing sounded good. I listed off what I saw in his fridge. 6 eggs, some leftover rice, frozen peas. I turned it into a half-decent stir-fry and brought it to him on a paper towel because he hadn't done dishes in 3 days. He laughed. "You're amazing," he said. I didn't do any of it because I had to. I did it because I wanted to. Because when someone you love is sick, you don't keep score. You just show up. You fluff pillows and check foreheads and bring water and rub backs and stay beside them even when they fall asleep mid-sentence. You don't wait for applause. You don't even think about it. It's instinct. That's what love looked like to me on that Saturday. Not flowers, not candlelight, not matching outfits on a cobblestone street. It was watching him sleep while the kettle boiled again. It was picking up his tissues without making a face. It was remembering how he likes his toast. Light, barely browned, butter only on one side. And I thought, maybe this is the kind of love people build a life on. I didn't post about it, didn't take photos. I just lived it, quietly, kindly, fully. I told myself, tomorrow he'll feel better. Tomorrow we'll go out. Tomorrow he'll say, "Thank you for taking care of me. Let's go make this weekend special for you, too." But I didn't know then that Saturday was going to be the only day I got to matter, that everything I gave, time, energy, softness, would be repaid with a message the next day that didn't start with thank you, but with a command, not, "Want to go explore the city today?" but, "My niece is coming. You're watching her. don't go anywhere. And somehow, all that care I'd given turned into a silent transaction he thought I'd already signed up for. Like showing up once meant I'd keep showing up, without limits, without question, without needing to be asked. I woke up hopeful that Sunday. He was feeling better. I could tell the moment he got out of bed with more energy in his step. No cough, no chills. The color was back in his face. It should have been a good sign. So I waited. Waited for him to say, "Let's get out of here," or, "I want to make today about you." Instead, he said, "Hey, my football match is at noon. Might be a couple hours? You don't mind, right?" I blinked, tried to hide the pause in my smile. I said, "Sure, go ahead." Because what else could I say? He was already tying his shoelaces. He promised he'd only play one game, just an hour or so. "Quick match," he said, "then I'm all yours." I nodded, quietly tucking away the thought that I had come all this way not to watch him play football, but to be with him. Not to sit on the sidelines, but to belong in the moment with him. Still, I came along. We arrived at the field, a dusty patch of grass in the heat, and I stood at the edge, trying to act like this was normal. Like I hadn't flown hours to sit in folding chair silence. I watched the first game, cheered a little, took a few pictures, sent him a thumbs up when he looked over after a goal. Then I checked the time. An hour turned into 2, then 3, no break, no wrap-up. No, "Hey, I'm done, let's go." He was laughing with his friends, drenched in sweat, high-fiving, joking around like this was the highlight of his week. And maybe it was. But I was still sitting there, burning slowly, not from the sun, but from the realization that this is what he chose to do with the first day he had his energy back. Not walk with me, not explore the city, not even sit at a cafe and talk. Football. Eventually, I slipped away. I walked around the neighborhood, found a little nail salon, and got a pedicure just to kill time. It was supposed to be self-care, but it felt more like self-rescue, trying to salvage something from a weekend that was slowly becoming about everyone but me. He came back 4.5 hours later, grinning like a boy who just won recess. No apology, no explanation, just, "Want to eat?" I wanted to scream. "I came all this way. I cooked for you, cleaned, took care of you when you were sick. And today, I waited while you played game after game, and you didn't even ask if I was okay." But I didn't. I just said, "Sure." And that's how Sunday ended. Not with a memory, not with a gesture, not with gratitude, but with the quiet knowing that somehow, in his world, I was always supposed to wait until he was done. I was standing in the hotel bathroom when my phone buzzed, still barefoot, still drying my hair. The sun was starting to set, casting that soft golden hue across the carpet. It had been a long day, longer than it should have been. I picked up my phone without thinking, expecting something sweet, a dinner idea maybe, a selfie with a smile, some kind of, "Thanks for today. I know I was all football and sweat, but let's make tonight just ours." But instead I read this. "My niece is staying the weekend. You're watching her. No walking the city." Just like that. No, "Would you mind?" No, "Are you okay with this?" No question mark, no choice, just instruction. I read it again, slower, hoping I'd misunderstood something. A typo, a joke, a missing please. But it was all there, plain, unapologetic. Like I was a box he'd checked. Like my presence was a given resource. Not a person, not a guest, not a partner, but a solution. I sat down on the edge of the bed, my towel still wrapped around me, my heart suddenly quiet. And the worst part? It wasn't the request itself. It wasn't even the assumption that I'd cancel my plans. It was the way he assigned me the role, as if I had no world of my own to return to. As if my time didn't carry weight. As if everything I had done up until that point, the flight, the food, the care, the waiting, was simply prelude to the real reason I was here, to make things easier for him. No conversation, no inclusion, just delegation. And that moment, that one text, said more than he realized. It said I wasn't his equal. It said I was expected to help, not because I offered, but because I was there. It said my needs didn't matter as much as his convenience. And that's when something in me shifted. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just sat there, letting the silence of that message echo louder than any argument we could have had. Because when someone doesn't even think to ask you before handing you responsibility, It means they've stopped seeing you as someone who gets to choose. And that's not love. That's logistics. That's using someone's kindness until they stop recognizing it as a gift and start mistaking it for a job. It started as a visit. A little time off work, a plane ticket, a bag packed with care, a chance to reconnect, to just be with him. But by Sunday night, it felt less like a getaway and more like a shift I hadn't clocked into. Let's break it down, not emotionally, but practically, like a checklist. Made every meal since I arrived, did dishes while he rested, nursed him back from the flu, cleaned up wrappers, clothes, whatever he left lying around. Waited 4.5 hours on a field so he could play football. Got a text assigning me to childcare duties for the rest of my stay. Now tell me, where in there was the vacation? Where was the me time? The walks we talked about, the late night city lights, hand in hand, the simple joy of being together, not just in physical proximity, but in mutual intention? I didn't need luxury. I didn't need champagne. I just needed not to feel like I had accidentally auditioned for a role in his household that no one discussed. Caretaker, cook, babysitter, backup, and the most painful part, I didn't complain, not once. Because, like so many women, I've been taught that love is proving yourself useful, that being the easy one earns you closeness, that if you're patient, kind, and unbothered, eventually someone will turn around and say, "Thank you for holding everything together." But that thank you never came. Instead, I got a text telling me where to be, what not to do, and what he expected from me next. And it hit me. This isn't partnership. This is unpaid labor dressed up as affection. When men say things like, "She just gets it, she takes care of me," what they often mean is, "She makes things easier for me without asking for anything back." But I didn't fly here to be useful. I came here to be wanted, to be looked at with appreciation, not expectation, to be part of something shared, not something assigned. And when he said I was staying for free, as if that meant I owed him a weekend of childcare and sacrificed plans, I realized he didn't see me as a guest or a partner or someone he was lucky to have. He saw me as available labor, and love, real love, doesn't see you as available. It sees you as autonomous, as a person with time, boundaries, and choice. So, no, I wasn't being dramatic. I wasn't overreacting. I was just doing the math. And suddenly, the cost of this visit didn't look like a plane ticket. It looked like me, exhausted, erased, and expected to smile anyway. Before I came, I told him the one thing I really wanted. Not a gift, not a big night out. Just one simple day to walk the city together. See the neighborhood he always talks about. Try the little cafe he mentioned once at midnight over the phone. Just be with him, in the places that made up his life when I wasn't there. He said, of course we'll do that. I'll plan something, he promised, and I believed him. Because why wouldn't I? I thought love meant you remembered the things that mattered to the person you cared about. Even the small things, especially the small things. But Sunday came and went, and all we toured was a football field. Monday morning, his niece arrived, and when I brought up the city, gently, casually, he looked confused, like I had just reminded him of something he didn't know he was supposed to remember. "Oh, yeah, I mean, maybe we can squeeze something in before your flight, like an hour maybe." An hour, for the one thing I asked. And even then it wasn't a commitment. It was a maybe, a placeholder, a slot that might or might not open up if nothing more important came along. And that's when it really hit me. I hadn't just been forgotten, I'd never been factored in. Not when he made his football plans, not when he invited his niece for the whole weekend, not when he decided I'd be watching her instead of exploring the city we both live in 2 separate time zones away from. It wasn't that I wasn't loved, it was that I wasn't prioritized. And those aren't the same thing, because love, without attention, without intention, starts to feel like background noise, like a song playing quietly in the other room. Nice to know it's there, but never turned up loud enough to make you feel anything. I stood in the hallway that day, holding my jacket, looking out the window toward the street I never got to walk. And I thought, I came all this way. I built my schedule around him. I showed up with my heart open, my hands full of care, and somehow I still became the afterthought. Not because he's cruel, but because he assumes I'll always understand, always bend, always wait, and I used to. I used to fill in the blanks for him, give the benefit of the doubt, tell myself that love was patience, even when it hurt. But I'm learning that there's a line between being patient and being invisible. And when the one thing you asked for is the only thing they forgot, you start to wonder if maybe it wasn't about memory at all. Maybe you were never in the picture to begin with. It was almost a throwaway comment. We were sitting on the couch, his niece watching cartoons, my suitcase half zipped by the door. I was quiet. He could tell. And he said it like a joke. I mean, you were staying for free. Then he laughed, not maliciously, not even seriously. Just that kind of shrugging offhand laugh people use when they want to say something uncomfortable without owning it. And I just sat there, staring at him, feeling something inside me drop, heavy and cold, staying for free. As if the space I took up in his home was a tab I hadn't paid. As if the meals I cooked, the dishes I washed, the medicine I brought him, the quiet I held while he rested, were somehow part of the bargain. Like he was the one doing me a favor by letting me exist in his world. And suddenly, I saw the whole trip differently. The couch I curled up on while he played games, the bathroom I cleaned after his fever broke, the hours I waited while he chased a ball around a field, the child I was told to watch without being asked, the plans I didn't make, the tour I didn't get, the voice I didn't use. Because I'd convinced myself that being helpful would make me valued, that being agreeable would make me indispensable, that if I gave enough, he'd never question my place in his life. But now, he had, with one sentence, and worse, he believed it. That this trip had cost him something, that I owed him. Even though I'd paid every day, I paid with my time, I paid with my care, I paid with the silence I swallowed every time I felt small but didn't say so. And maybe the cruelest part is, I let it happen, because I wanted to be chosen, I wanted to be seen as good, I wanted to be low maintenance, cool, easy to be around. But here's what I've learned. When you make yourself small enough to fit someone's life, they will stop making space for you. They won't think, wow, she does so much. They'll think, she doesn't need much. I can give her less. So no, I wasn't staying for free. I was paying every second I was there. And next time, if that's the cost of love, I'd rather pay for my own hotel. There's a difference between not being someone's first priority for a day and never quite making it to the top of their list. I used to brush it off, the way he'd reschedule my calls for his online game nights, the way he forgot small things I'd told him, like my favorite author or what time my flight landed, the way his plans always came pre-filled, football, friends, work. And then I'd be penciled in, somewhere between dinner and we'll see. I told myself he was busy, that he just wasn't a planner, that I was being too sensitive. But this trip stripped all the excuses away. I wasn't asking to be worshipped. I wasn't asking for fireworks. I was just asking to be considered, to be in the room when decisions were made, about how time was spent, about who stayed over, about what mattered. But again and again, I was informed, not invited. I wasn't asked how I felt about missing the city. I wasn't consulted about watching his niece. I wasn't even really acknowledged after hours of care and waiting. I was just expected to say yes, to adjust, to understand. And when I finally pushed back, gently, mentioned that I'd hoped for more time together, that maybe we could still go explore before I flew out, he looked surprised, like I'd broken character, as if speaking up made me inconvenient. But here's the thing. No one wants to feel like a guest star in the story they're supposed to be co-writing. I don't need to be the center of someone's universe. I just need to know I'm in it, not orbiting, not waiting on the sidelines, not silently folding into whatever space is left after everyone else has been accommodated. Because when you always come after the game, the friends, the family, the errands, the mood, you start to believe that's what you're worth. You start to lower your expectations, call it being chill. You start to silence your wants, call it being supportive. You start to disappear and call it love. But love doesn't require erasure. And if someone only treats you well when it's convenient, when no one else needs their attention, that isn't partnership. That's proximity. That's a placeholder. And I'm finally starting to realize I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't asking for too much. I was just tired of always coming second. And maybe the hardest truth of all, he didn't even notice. I didn't leave angry. I didn't slam doors or fire off some dramatic text. I just stood in the airport security line, shoes off, hands in my coat pockets, and made a quiet promise to myself. Next time I show up for someone, it will be because they showed up for me too. Because I've learned something. When someone loves you, truly, deeply, they don't make you ask to be considered. They think ahead. They include you in decisions. They don't assign you responsibilities like you're a part of the furniture. They ask, what would make this feel special for you? And then they listen. I didn't need a grand gesture. I just needed to be remembered. But instead, I was treated like an afterthought in a weekend I rearranged my life to be part of. And for the women watching this, the ones who've cooked, packed, adjusted, and swallowed their own expectations in silence, I want to say something clearly. You are not demanding. You are not too much. You are not selfish for wanting to feel like you matter. And for the men who might be watching, if you've ever found yourself saying, she just got upset out of nowhere, maybe, go back and check where you stopped seeing her. Because nobody breaks down over a single text. They break down when they realize they were never in your plans to begin with. So, if this hits something in you, if you've ever sat quietly in someone's home and wondered when you'd stop feeling like a convenience, you're not alone. Hit subscribe, leave a comment, tag someone who needs to be reminded that showing up is not a weakness, it's a gift. And the right person will never make you feel like a burden just because you expected to be treated like a partner. You're not asking for too much. You're just finally asking for enough.